Before we begin, let's take a few moments to worship the Supreme One, the infinitely compassionate One, the Sublime One, the Tathagata, by chanting the Namaskar 3 times altogether and with me. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. With permission from the Noble Triple Gem. Venerable monks. Today, as I was coming down, one of the first things that came to my head was how rare is the Namaskar? I mean, traditionally, we do it every single time. We live and breathe in the monastery. Therefore, the Namaskar, we hear the Namaskar 3, 4, 5 times a day. Before we precept, before we listen to a sermon, before any major, religious event, we have the Namaskar. So it's very strange to think of how rare that is. Because it's not rare, is it? 3 or 4 times a day, is that rare? But when it's compared to our entire sansaric journey, just hearing the word Namo Tassa, that is one of the most rarest. Because what does it actually mean? What does Namo Tassa really mean? Because what you are doing isn't just a simple, just chanting a phrase. Let me just chant. Sayana says, let's chant the Namaskar. Let me chant the Namaskar then. And we just chant. This one phrase holds an entire, you can spend many, almost hours just talking about the Namaskar itself. Because the Namaskar itself has what? The path to Nibbana inside its small words. All concise into, just a small phrase. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. But yet, it is one of the most rare. Because what we have to remember is, even though our life, in our entire life, we are all very fortunate to be born in a time where, the Buddha Sasana is coming to arise. Every day we are getting more and more knowledge of the Dhamma, understanding of the Dhamma, and therefore we are coming to understand what the true Buddha Sasana is. But throughout our entire existence in samsara, this is just a fleeting moment. This is just a single moment, a flash. I think one of the analogies that the Buddha himself gives is like to attain Nibbana, or almost to be born in a time of a Buddha Sasana. And not just to be born, but also to practice the path and, attain the state of Sotapanna. It's like a skilled archer loading his or her bow and arrow in pitch black. A storm comes up, right? There's a massive storm. Lightning strikes. And when the lightning strikes, at that small flash of light, he sees a feather and shoots. That's how rare it is for one to not only be born in the time of the Buddha, to be able to have the opportunity to listen to the Dhamma, but also to understand it. Just imagine that you're given a bow and arrow and you're said, you've been told to shoot. Right? There's a white feather somewhere in the distance. You don't know where. You don't know how far. You have no clue whatsoever. But you're told, shoot. Now, unfortunately, I don't think to this day we have no way of still accurately predicting the weather. Every forecast, you see the forecast, you think it's going to rain tomorrow, and there's always a chance of it raining or not raining. How many times have we been tricked? We put on our raincoats and it's entirely sunny the entire day. Or it says it's going to rain, or it says it's not going to rain, and midday it starts to rain. Not heavily, but light drizzle. So still, even though technology has advanced so far, we still can't predict weather. And not just weather, can you predict when lightning strikes? So you're waiting there with your bow and arrow loaded, waiting for that one moment for the lightning to strike, and that flash. In that flash of a moment, you see the feather, you take aim, and you fire. Not only fire, you hit this feather. So the Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa, for us to hear that is that rare. Because you can only hear that in the time of Buddha Sasana. In the time of either the Great One himself, or else his followers, his disciples are still around. Now, in the Sasana of the Gautama, we only have 2,500 years left, but in total a 5,000 year ministry. Sasana. So we are very fortunate to be able to, to even say the words, Namo Tassa Bhagavato. We are so fortunate. In our entire samsara, this is just a small moment. And this is you saying that, I not only respect or I worship the Exalted One, but I am also trying to put my mind on the path. That's what you're promising. Because, we've talked about worship in the past, so I'm not going to go through what worshipping truly is. But we have to understand that we're saying that we are trying to put our mind on this path. This path to what? To become what? A Buddha. A Buddha in the sense of not a Samma Sambuddha, but an Arahant Buddha. A person who understands his or her mind, understands how it should be, and also has rid him or herself of all ignorance. If you look at our traditions, we have many traditions. And something that I continue to say is that these traditions are based in lots of meaning. But over time, meaning is lost. Same with everything. Traditions all have meanings behind it. For example, on Christmas trees, you have a star. Currently, that's just a tradition, but there's meaning behind it. As time goes on, people forget why they put the star on top, and it just becomes, just something that they do. Just something that they do. I'm just going to put this on top. Why? Because, my parents did that. But, the grandparents or 5 or 3, 4 generations before, they had a reason. So through time, meaning is lost. So even all our traditions, they hold a lot of meaning behind it. But it's lost. This is why, I continuously remind all of you, don't do things just because. Try to understand why. Why do we do such things? The other day I was talking with some people about, the 5 precepts. These 5 precepts, now as most of you here no longer observe the 5 precepts. Most of us now observe the 10 precepts. Our hiding monks have way, way, way more precepts. But as a lay person practicing the path, you observe the 5 precepts. So today morning, you observed 8 precepts. The 5 precepts, again, another tradition. But why? The 5 precepts weren't actually something that the Buddha had prescribed. It wasn't something that the Buddha said, okay, these are the 5 rules that you have to follow. Because the Buddha, for a lay person, actually for anyone that is not a monk, bhikkhu or bhikkhuni, or upasaka upasaka, he has not actually given any rules. So these 5 precepts aren't something the Buddha himself has given. Actually, these are something that the King Sakra had prescribed many, many millennia ago. Said, these are the 5 things you have to avoid. Killing, stealing, misconduct, and da-da-da-da-da. The Buddha doesn't say anything because these are what people followed. See, the Buddha doesn't go and, isn't invasive and says, do something completely different. This is why the Buddha is very special. He doesn't go and say, do something completely different. He says, understand why you do it. So instead of changing it, he does what? He gives it meaning. He gives it a different meaning. See, the 5 precepts aren't things that you have to continuously follow. Why? Because by understanding the Dhamma, the 5 precepts are followed. Just think of it like this, right? So the first precept, right, we all know to be panatipata. Now the very simple meaning for this is, I observe the precept not to. The overall, most people follow this precept of not to kill. However, it's more than killing. It's more about harming. Now, for someone who doesn't understand the mind, harming can happen. But someone who understands minds, harming. For example, let's take an example here, right? Person A doesn't like person B. Therefore, person A, what does he do? Person A, say, plans to hurt person B. Now, hurting doesn't always have to be physical. You know that, right? We can hurt someone physically, verbally, mentally, emotionally. I mean, there are many ways. There are more ways to hurt a person than actually help a person. Now, A doesn't like B. Therefore, A wants to hurt B. So what we have to remember is, to break this precept, the first thing you need is a malicious intent. And a malicious intent can only happen if A thinks what? I am here. B is here. I don't like B. I don't like B. B did this. Therefore, I'm gonna hurt B's feeling by saying, say you're stupid. I don't know. Now let's view this simple act in the lens of the Dhamma. Now, we've talked about these sort of examples in the past, but I want you to think about this. I want to give you a moment to think about this. I want you to view this moment with the lens of the Dhamma. What is actually happening here? What is actually happening here? Because once you realize what truly is happening, you think, why? How? What is who is person A? Who is person A? Who is this? Who is this? Person A, right? 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 This is person A. This is person A. I need an answer. Because I can't go without an answer. Come on, give me an answer. This is person A. Then what is it? Perfect. This is a body. Oh, you can see the body. And a mind. This is not person A, but a body and a mind. Now, how does the mind work? How does the mind work? There has to be what? For a mind to arise, what is the fun? Why is there a mind? Let me ask you that. Why is there a mind? Why is there a mind? The mind is there to perceive, to identify, to perceive whatever stimulus is there. Whether it's a sight, sound, smell, taste, thought, or a thought itself, is to perceive. That is the entire purpose of the mind, nothing else. So we've talked about this, and so I'm going to, fly, have a whistle-stop tour on this, right? We have RV, SSV, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Vijnana is the overall perception, right? Rupa is the formation of the mental image in the mind. Vedana is the contact, right, of the image into the mind, and therefore it's identified and perceived. Because that's the entire purpose of the mind, is to contact with stimulus and to identify. That's why if I show you this, whether you are, an animal, or whether you are a human, or whether you are an arahant, you all perceive something. Will you perceive the same thing? For example, they say dogs see in black and white. So if I show this to a dog, will the dog perceive blue? No, but will have some sort of perception, regardless. So the mind arises with our RVSSV, right? And it comes to perceive an image. However, we know it's not just the mind involved. What else is there? What else is there? We have the aggregate process, and we also have the what? The defilement process. Defilement process starts with, let's change our color. Ignorance, attachment, then vexation, then insanity mode, then, for argument's sake, we'll say ego. Right? We have ignorance and attachment. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of what? What is this mind ignorant about? The mind is ignorant about the nature of nature. It is ignorant about what is nature, what is actually happening. Therefore, instead of thinking of the world to be anicca dukkha anatta, it thinks of the world to be nicca sukha atta. It thinks that there are things. It has a view that there are separate things. that there are different items, that there are separate people. Therefore, because of ignorance, what happens? The mind in one likes it, has this feeling of, this is a good idea. Therefore, attachment happens. The moment there's attachment, what happens? The moment you attach to anything, what happens? The mind searches for it. For example, the moment let's say, the moment I remind you of a pizza. If you like pizza, from the moment I remind you of a pizza, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Pizza? Good. Like pizza. When was the last time I had pizza? Since I became a Cedar Shawi guy, I haven't had a pizza in a while. Oh, since I became an Anagarika, maybe I had a pizza, a couple months, a couple years back. And inside, what is happening? Inside, it's bubbling. Inside, what is bubbling? This pressure, what? Pizza. I like pizza. Same thing here. Ignorance of pizza gives you the vexation for what? Pizza. Ignorance of nature gives you vexation of nature. Now the mind is looking for this fixed, this entity. However, as we all know, this entity is what? Where on earth can we find a separate thing that is not part of nature? That is not part of nature. Where in this universe can you find something that is not, doesn't follow the rules of nature? Nature in the sense of anicca dukkha anatta, right? I'm not saying, nature as in Mother Nature, green and waterfalls. No, I'm talking nature as in anicca dukkha anatta. Tell me one thing in this entire universe. I mean, if you think about this, once you understand the fundamental laws of nature, you can go to, Mars. Forget Mars. You can go to a different galaxy and still know how it works. Because you realize that it is also what? Part of nature. See, you could be on Earth here. You could be on the moon. You could be, in the forgotten planet of Pluto. But still, the mind works how it works, and everything works as it works. Because why? Everything is part of nature. Nothing is separate here. But because of vexation, because the mind can no longer handle this vexation, it flips on this safety, which we call what? Insanity mode, which gives rise to what? Ego, jati. Jati in the sense that, I am separate, I am different. I am something that is completely separate. Now, when we say ego, yes, is a sense of identity here. But also it's a sense of separating things as well. So the moment, jati occurs or ego occurs, A is now what? A is now what? Separate. A is now what? Separate. A is now what? Different. Now, the moment you have something that is separate, the moment you have something that is different, what do you have to do? So an example that Guru Hamdar gave long ago. If you have a car, what do you must have next? If you have a car, what do you must have next? A place to park it. The moment you have jati, the moment you have ego, now you have to find a place to park it. Where am I? Who am I? And now, now the mind, now ego or jati is trying to find every single thing you can grab onto. I am person A. I am male, I am female, I am this, I am that, I am this person, I am that person. And it's trying to find a place to place itself. Whether it thinks it's high or whether it thinks it's low, it finds a place to place itself. For example, let's say for this example, we say A feels as though it is superior to B. Now on the recipient end, what is also happening here? We also have what? Again, who is B? Who is this? Who is this? Not who. What is this? What is this? Also what? A mind. Do you know what's really funny? When person A goes through jati or goes to ego, not only does person A fix themselves, instead, it also fixes what? The other. So it thinks that B is also what? Fixed, separate, different person. And like I said, now, once you have a car, you have to park it. Now, it's judging. A is now judging. Am I higher than B or is B higher than me? And not only that, once it is fixed, now, you can create this story. Now, A met B. B did something that hurted A, and now A feels really angry. But let's say for this example state, this person B is an arahant. Let's say it's an arahant. Does person B feel as though it's separate? So, for an arahant, they also have what? The aggregate process, right? So they also have perception. They also perceive. However, what do they not have? They do not have what? Ignorance. They understand the nature of nature. They understand what is nature. And therefore what? The mind still arises and passes away. However, jati is not there. However, ego is not there. So what happens? B doesn't feel what? Separated. B doesn't feel what? And it's like you feel like an entity. B feels what? I am part of nature. Right? 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 I am part of nature. Right? Just thinks nature. This is nature. See, we can only just try to imagine that mindset. We can just try. But the only way you can actually understand the mindset is if what? The only way you can truly understand the mindset of an arahant is by becoming an arahant yourself. But we know one thing. This mind does not feel what? Separate. Now, I don't want to confuse you and say that they don't say I. They will say I. They are, even the Buddha himself says, monks, this is who I was in the past. However, we know one thing. The Buddha doesn't feel what? A separate nature. The Buddha himself doesn't feel that I am different. I am separate. I. This feeling of me, the feeling of separate, the feeling of time. So let's say now A is looking at B. Now because of ego, A also fixes themselves and also fixes B. I mean, how unfair is that? A is giving B a feeling that B himself does not feel. B themselves do not feel, but A is giving that feeling. I mean, we've all been through that, right? Where you're talking to someone else and you think they are feeling this sort of way. But when you actually talk to them, they think, and they say, not even did I ever even dream of thinking like that. For example, let's say Let's say something happens. Let's say you are, say, walking to the Dhamma hall. Or let's say person B is walking to the Dhamma hall and falls and trips and has an accident. Now, you can look at this and say, you know what, maybe person B feels really embarrassed. Everyone may be watching him or her. Maybe everyone is still, maybe they feel embarrassed. So maybe I have to go and tell them, don't worry. It was just an accident. But person B can say, I didn't feel embarrassed. Instead, I just thought, what happened just happened. But you looking at this, create this idea that maybe they're embarrassed. You know how some people believe they can read another person's mind? Parents have that a lot, don't they? I know my child. I know what my child is thinking. I know exactly how my child will behave. Because why? They project what? They project ego. This is what they're feeling. So regardless, now, person A, person B. Person A feels that person B is there. Person A feels that person B did something horrible to them. Didn't say Teruvan Sarana in the morning. Horrible. Didn't say Teruvan Sarana. How could they? Person B, how could you not say Teruvan Sarana? And so person A got really angry. Person A got angry because of what? Person B didn't say Teruvan Sarana. I mean, that's it. That's not a reason to be angry, of course. But for argument's sake, we'll say that, right? They didn't welcome me, and therefore I feel really angry at them. And therefore, person A, now because they feel that my ego has not been given a place, that builds what inside of them? It builds what inside of them? It builds this vexation. And when the vexation comes to a point where the mind can no longer hold it, it is released. How is it released? Either by words, thoughts, or actions. Whenever you have a vexation, you release this vexation because vexation it's almost as if your mind is allergic to vexation. It is always trying to get rid of it. That's why the Buddha says, Kanti paramanda buddhika, be patient. Because what happens is, our mind, when it feels vexation, is always trying to relieve it. Very simple. That's why when you stub your toe, you have to say something. To relieve this physical pain, I understand. But mental pain, to relieve the mental pain, the mind will try to do whatever it can. So when person A feels, my ego has been put down, I don't like that. Now what? It's the vexation increases, and then out comes a way to relieve this vexation. This is why when you become angry, sometimes you don't really think. This happens. This is why once you understand the reality, you can't, not forgive them. The other day, I was talking to some people, and they were telling me that, this one person's really angry with them. Right? He's very young, right? But he's very naive. And what happened is that, so we'll name them person A and person B, right? Person A, out of great compassion, shows fault in person B. But person B isn't ready to listen. Now, every time person A shows fault in person B, what does person B feel? Happy? See, if person B is not ready to accept their faults, all that's there, all that's happening is that vexation is growing. This mental pressure is increasing. Increasing. Unfortunately, person A is someone who is in the order of their seniority is higher. Therefore, person B can't say something directly. But increases. No, person B at one moment couldn't hold this any longer and says, so person B is younger than person A. Says not to person A because, he has some sort of respect, but says to other people, person A, that person A will one day grow old. When that person A grows old, I'm going to be the one who's going to medicate them. And I will not medicate them properly. Now, why would person B say that? Why would person B say that? Because? Where are you? Oh, here it is. Because of vexation. So if you were to see this as it is, so person A says something to person B to relieve this vexation. Now, if you see this event, how can you be angry at person A? When you realize person A had said this because they feel that they are separate. So how can you be angry? Not only angry, how can you think of harming another person? Through words, thoughts, or actions. If you understand that person A and person B, they are just, person A feels what? To be separate. Person A feels what? Vexation. This is why Panatipata, the first precept isn't something that you have to protect. Understanding the Dhamma, it is protected. Once you understand, say person A, instead now let's take person B, right? And let's say person B also has what? Also has ego. And so when this is said, now they become angry. But if person B has the Dhamma, understands the nature of nature, sees this to be what? A process of cause and? If you see this, why did person A say such thing? There's a beautiful process here. A process, if you see a process of something, is it fixed? If you see a process of something, is it fixed? It can't be fixed. It is what? Cause and effect. It is anicca, dukkha, anatta. You're seeing the nature of nature. So if person A gets to see, understands the nature of nature, sees this to be a process. Now, how can person B feel the need to retaliate? To seek revenge? Can they? This is why the 5 precepts have to be protected. Have to be, protected and have to be constantly reminded. Until what? Until you no longer need to. Someone who understands the Dhamma no longer has a need to harm. No longer has a need to hurt another person. Person, animal, whatever. See, we can change the scenario very quickly. And say, I'm trying to draw my best impression of what's this? Good. At least, my drawing is becoming better. You can identify it's a mosquito. We changed person A instead from a person to an animal, a mosquito. The mosquitoes, right? how annoying mosquitoes can be. Right, especially in Sri Lanka, they're all around. At 6 o'clock, we have to close all the windows and doors so they don't come inside. Mosquitoes. Oh no, mosquitoes. We change the scenario from a person to now A is a mosquito. What is the difference? What is the difference? What part of this do I have to change? I'm sorry, we have to change, This now goes like... Now that's the mind of the mosquito. Is it? Or does it have... instead of that's like... No. Again, don't be fooled that this is the mind. This is not the shape or the it's just the way we represent the mind. The mind doesn't go up and down, right? Yeah, that's not how the mind works. But there's no other way to represent something you cannot see. The reason why we do this to show that the mind arises and passes away. It's not that it goes. It's not a shape or a size. Nothing, right? So it doesn't go and say I am mosquito, I fly and then go. No, it's not like that. It's just that it arises and passes away. The same way as it's funny, right? Same way as us. We compare animals to who? Us. Because why? We are Homo sapiens sapiens. We are the superior species. Right? We are able to think. No, minds are minds. Whether you're a human or whether you're a mosquito. So what changes here? What changes here? Nothing. Nothing changes. So if person B was to get angry at if person B was to get angry at mosquito A, why is that? Because of mosquito A is just going over my... what is more annoying? Mosquito bites or mosquito sounds? What's more annoying, the mosquito bite or mosquito sounds? It's very funny. Sometimes when you're in the belly module, right? You're trying to meditate, and you just hear, zzz, zzz. You have this urge to, oh God, there's mosquitoes. Where's the Siddha Lepa? Right? We have to apply this because now you're scared of what? Now you have to apply all these insect repellents just because you hear zzz. Why? Why is it really annoying? Because now I can no longer meditate. Now I'm worried about what? Mosquitoes. But that is a sound nonetheless. Now that doesn't mean, again, let me re-emphasize, that doesn't mean if you hear mosquitoes, you shouldn't be applying mosquito repellent. Please do, because we don't want any of you to have a case of dengue or whatnot. So take precautions, but understand that the reason why you feel this vexation is because of what? The mosquito hasn't even bit yet. The sound itself it gives you vexation because you are now thinking about what? The future. I hear the sound. Next thing that's coming up is the bite. We don't like the bite because who is the mosquito biting? Whose blood is it drinking? And who has to suffer the consequence of an itchy bump? I have to go through that. I can't do that. I can't do any of this. We don't see it to be what? A mind arises, the mind passes. Instead we see, no, mosquito bite me, biting hurt, kind of, sometimes. It's funny, sometimes when you are outside, you can see a variety of different mosquitoes. There are big mosquitoes, there are small mosquitoes. There are mosquitoes that bites are very painful. There are mosquitoes that bites aren't painful, however, it's very itchy. And so for example, you see a mosquito, you've already projected the future. This mosquito, when it bites me, it's gonna hurt. For example, there are really big mosquitoes, right? When they bite, you can really feel the I don't know what's it called. It's called the needle, I think. The pincer or the needle of the mosquito. You can feel it going in. And automatically you create this future because of ego. Because in reality, what is actually happening? A mind arises, the mind passes. If that is so, how can person B go and harm mosquito A? When it understands that mosquito A is just what? A mind with a different body. Can no longer harm. So even if mosquito A became hypothetically, it can't happen, but hypothetically, if mosquito A becomes an arahant, mosquito A becomes hypothetically, cannot happen. Let me reemphasize that. Would A do anything to B? Because A understands that B is also what? A mind. A understands B is a mind. That mind of B can feel what? If ignorance is there, will feel what? Ego. And therefore, it will feel that, it's being harmed. And mosquito A doesn't want that. Therefore, it will not harm. So this idea of harming can only come when? When there's ignorance. So again, the first precept, you have to protect until you no longer need to protect it. Once you understand that it's a mind and a body, you no longer need to. You no longer feel the need to harm. That's why, you hear that, the Buddha, there's a very common saying that the Buddha doesn't even secretly do bad. I mean, the Buddha is incapable. I mean, whether you're a Samma Sambuddha or Arhatan Buddha, they are incapable of what? Of doing bad. Because why? They have no intention. Because remember, the first thing you need to break the precept is a malicious intent. If you don't have that malicious intent, the precept cannot be broken. Okay, let's take the next one. Adinadana. Very basically, it means what? I observe the precept not to take what doesn't belong to me. Very interesting, isn't it? I observe the precept not to take what doesn't belong to me. Belong to who? Me. Belong to who? Belongs to me. That means if it doesn't belong to me, who does it belong to? Someone? Someone else. See, again, this precept can only be broken if what? You feel that this belongs to who? Now remember, this is again, we have to break the two away. Society and the truth. As we live in society, when you're in Rome, you have to be like the Romans, right? So in society, we have to understand that this doesn't belong to you. These belong to me. Or X, Y, and Z, right? You have to understand that. But in reality, does this actually belong to who? Let's make person A back. Well, let's make the mosquito back to person A. This is what person A owns. This is what person B owns. In society, or with an ignorant mind, this is what happens. For example, we all have that, right? we have things that we own. We have a house that we own. We have maybe a car, a vehicle, maybe children. We have, things that we own. So, for example, from monks and anagarikas, we have, a box this big, this wide, which we put the things that we own. So everything that we own is fitted into a small box. But for those who don't have that, your boxes are massive. You have an entire, acre big box where you put everything inside. Now, in this idea that this is what belongs to me, and this is what belongs to B, once you have that border of mine and yours, now stealing can happen. How? Person A sees something that person B has. Therefore, person A likes it. Then, because person B now feels what? The moment attachment is there, what is next? After attachment, what do we have next? Vexation. Once you have vexation, next what happens? Now the mind finds a way to relieve itself from what? Vexation. Therefore, A will now steal from B. Take the thing that it wants and put it into their pile of what belongs to them. That is stealing in the most basic form. In its fundamental form, things belong to A, things belongs to B. A looks at B, sees something that A likes, takes it, that is stealing. Now let's look at this through the eyes of the Dhamma. What actually belongs to A and what actually belongs to B? Let's take something that I hope we all have. And I hope for a very good reason. Let's take something that I hope we all have. A toothbrush. And we all have a toothbrush, right? Yes? None of you don't have a toothbrush. Good. Toothbrush belongs to who? Toothbrush belongs to who? This is my toothbrush. I'm the one who uses it. I'm the one who uses it. Right? I'm the one who uses it. Therefore, this toothbrush is. I was told a story of one of our monks. As a lay person, he and his partner were living in a house. And next to in the bathroom, the sink, they have, a couple. So they have 2 toothbrushes. And they spend most of their use a toothbrush for how many months? Like 3 months, I think. Hygienically, you can use a toothbrush for about 3 months. Afterwards, you can still use it, but then it becomes less and less effective. That's beside the point. And so they've had this toothbrush for a couple months. And the wife realizes that one toothbrush is more eroded than the other. The bristles are sprayed, right? The toothbrush that she uses is more sprayed than the one that he uses. But, it could be, some people have the habit of biting their bristles. So, it could be. But then the husband also had the same idea. The toothbrush I'm using is more sprayed, or the bristles are more, spread out than my wife's. Because they never brush their teeth at the same time. So, my toothbrush was also A's toothbrush is also B's toothbrush. They didn't know. And so they're very happy using, until one day they were going on a trip. And they were told to pack their toothbrushes. Wife tells husband to pack toothbrush. Husband goes to the bathroom and says, my toothbrush is missing. Wife goes in the bathroom and says, here it is. That's your toothbrush. And then they both become very aware that they've been sharing the same toothbrush. So the toothbrush belongs to who now? So your toothbrush. How are you certain that you're the only person who uses your toothbrush? Now making you doubt your own hygiene here. How do you know that you're the only person who's using your toothbrush? You don't know. I mean, the toothbrush is, you use the toothbrush for how long? Hygienically, 3 months. And then you remove it and you take a new toothbrush. What happens to your old toothbrush? Well, God knows. You throw it goes to recycling or goes to a trash. It goes back to, either it's in a landfill site, slowly and very, very slowly eroding, or has been recycled to make another toothbrush. Either way, it's no longer yours. It's no longer in your section, in your box. Therefore, you don't care about it. But so, before you bought before this toothbrush became yours, you don't care about it. After you use the toothbrush, now you don't care about it. Only once you use it, or once you think it belongs to you, do you start worrying about your toothbrush. That's why, if you lost your toothbrush, you feel very, I don't know how much a toothbrush costs, but, if you've lost your toothbrush, you still feel very vexated. Because where's my toothbrush? Where is my toothbrush? Now, something that happens a lot, especially when you live, with a large group of people, right? Like an anagarika, monks as well, is that once you put clothes onto the line, they go missing. They just vanish. Sometimes you put something onto the line and within 5 minutes, it's gone, right? It's still, you put it on wet and in 5 minutes, it's just disappeared. Now, you can feel really upset about this. How? It was my towel. Oh, not towel, let's take something else. It was my pillowcase. Someone's taken my pillowcase, and you could be really upset about it. If anything, you've put it in this box of yours. But in reality, who does this pillowcase belong to? Who does the pillowcase belong to? The pillowcase belongs to nature. The pillowcase belongs to nature. You're the one who thought that it belonged to you. Therefore, you're the one who's suffering. Not because of not because of the pillowcase, but because you believe that pillowcase is yours. So in reality, if you look at it, what is it that actually belongs to you? See, everything that belongs to you, you can remove, right? It can be taken away from you. Like last week, we talked about this. Anything of yours can be taken away from you. Whether it's your house, whether it's, your children, whether it's, your clothes, anything that belongs to you can be taken away. But what can't be taken away? Your body? But is your body yours? What part of your body is you? Let's break the body into its fundamentals. Right? Let's break the body into its organs. You got the brain, you got the heart, you got the lungs, you got the liver, you got the intestines, you got the spleen and X, Y, and Z. You can break it into its parts. Which part is yours? The brain is me. The heart is me. The lungs, they're mine. Let's break each and every part of this organ, right? These organs into its fundamental. Now if you broke every organ into its fundamentals, now you're left behind with what? These proteins. Break the proteins into its fundamentals. What do you do? What do you have now? These elements. Break the elements into its fundamentals. What do you have? Protons, neutrons, electrons. Break those, then you have what? Up, down, quarks, and you can keep breaking and breaking and breaking. So which element is yours? Which element is yours? Is carbon yours? Nitrogen, oxygen. Okay, I'll go through the elements and you tell me which one is yours. We got hydrogen, helium, lithium. Which one's yours? Beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon. Which one is yours? Fine. Are protons yours? Neutrons yours? Electrons yours? Which ones? Which ones are yours? Protons are all mine. Right? So everything with a proton is mine. Try to think all protons are yours. That means what belongs to you? If all protons are yours, what belongs to you? This entire universe is yours. If protons belong to you, this entire universe is yours. So look after it. Look after the entire universe. Just like it's yours. It's yours. So is your body yours? So if your body is not yours, how can you steal something? How can you steal something? Stealing cannot happen because why? It belongs to what? Who does this all belong to? This border is something that you've placed. You've placed because of ego. Actually, this is just what? There is no borders whatsoever. I can take a carbon from anything and swap it with a carbon of yours. And does it make a difference? No, because why? Which is actually, what really belongs to you? Nothing. It's an idea of belonging. Does your toothbrush only brush your teeth? Can it only brush your teeth? No, the husband and wife shared a toothbrush. They was brushing both of their teeth. You can use that same toothbrush and brush the teeth of, your pet dog. And it will still brush their teeth. So so who does the toothbrush belong to? No, the toothbrush has only one thing. What is that? The toothbrush can be used to brush. The toothbrush has the quality of what? Brushing. Therefore, it can be used to brush what? I mean, you've seen toothbrushes brush teeth. Have you not seen people use toothbrushes to scrub things? How? It's a toothbrush. Toothbrush in its name has what? It's used to be to brush what? Teeth? No, it has the quality of what? Brushing. Therefore, it can be used for anything that is to do with brushing. I mean, the Buddha himself, says to monks how to use a robe. He says once a robe, starts to erode, to sew patches, once it's ripped, to sew patches. Once you can no longer sew patches because it's, really, really eroded. Use it as a what? A carpet. Once that carpet is becoming more eroded and ripping even more, use it. Use it to, wipe things. Once even that becomes really eroded, you can no longer use it to wipe things. Use it. So back then they used to have in their abodes were made of clay. And for clay to stick, they needed a frame. Made from what? Clothes. So what is a robe used for? What is a robe used for? Just to wear? It's used to even make the walls of these clay walls in the time of the Buddha. And then soon it will, after it's made the walls, then it will, slowly and carefully, when the kuti collapses one day, and it will just dissolve into the earth, because the Buddha himself shows that whose robe is yours? Which robe is yours? Are your clothes yours? Are they just clothes? No, these are part of this massive process. So how can you steal now? How can you steal now? If you know that nothing belongs to you and nothing belongs to them. However, out of great compassion, we understand what? That person B may feel what? Oh, these are my things. Therefore, out of compassion, person A will not take what? Something from person B. However, if person A accidentally does take something from person B, it will not be stolen, because person A does not have the intention. I mean, just take any of the 5 precepts. All these 5 precepts can only happen if ignorance is there. Why lie? Why should we lie? Why do we lie? Why do we lie? As we are all in the monastery trying to practice the path, and we all have a teacher, right? Why would you lie to a teacher? To protect what? If I tell my teacher I did this, what would my teacher think of? Me, because you still feel what? I am here. I am important. I am the greatest here. I'm the greatest person alive, so I have to have the respect. I have to have a reputation to upkeep. Me. That's why people lie. Did you do this? No. I didn't do that. And inside you think, yeah, I did. To upkeep what? Me. So why do we lie? To upkeep ego. Why do we gossip? We all love gossiping, right? The other day this happened. This person did this. And, this group of people came together. Why do we gossip? Gossiping can only happen if what? You can only gossip about a person, right? A being. Try gossiping about a mind. A mind arose, perceiving sight. What a beautiful sight it was. But then another mind arose, perceiving sound. What a bad mind that was. How can you gossip about a mind? You can't gossip about a mind. You can only gossip about what? A fixed entity, a person, or a group of people. So if you understood that this is a mind at play here, a mind and a body, how can you gossip? Once you understand the nature of nature, how can you gossip? But yet, the moment you slip out of this understanding of reality, gossiping is very easy. Technically, human made speech for what? For gossiping. For telling another person a story. Language was made for stories. Stories of what? Whether we believe in language, where we believe language came from, we all know language is there for us to tell a story of ego. I did this, I did that, or they did this, they did that, or this imaginary person did this imaginary person did that. All a form of gossip. And again, How can you gossip when you understand what a body and that this is the body and mind? How can you gossip when you understand the nature of nature? Now, of course, swearing, harsh words, right? What about empty words? You know how people like ramble on about things? For example, it's a very common thing in Sri Lanka. When a group of people come together, the first thing, especially, uncles, when uncles all come together, the first thing that they talk about is what? They love talking about what? Politics. It's just something that once they have a couple of, once they're together, the first thing they talk about is politics. What's the point? Is that empty? But they can only talk about this if only what? There is someone else. Something else. You can only talk about this. How can you talk about minds? If you understand the other person is a mind and a body, how can you start gossiping? How can you waste a mind? See, someone who's practicing the path, someone who is very, very, has this great need to practice the path, how can they, waste another mind? Because they realize every minute that they waste, they're losing 60 seconds of happiness. Every minute they waste, they know they're losing 60 seconds of what? Every mind that they waste, they understand that they're losing another mind that could have been ignorance-free. So again, see, these precepts aren't there. Okay, and then let's come to the last one as well. Taking intoxicants. What's bad about just taking just a small glass of wine? What's bad about that? We are here on a very conscious journey, a journey where we have to be very aware. Our defilements are hidden in every corner of our minds. Why waste? Why waste that focus? Why waste that awareness? Why waste that? We come into this world. We come into this world after doing countless amount of meritorious activities. The only reason we are alive today at this moment is because of our merits. No other reason. Because of all the merits we've accumulated throughout this lifetime and previous lifetimes. The moment your merit stops, I can guarantee you'll drop dead there on the spot. The moment your merits, you no longer have any merits. We come into this life because of all the merits we've accumulated. We come into this life to get a human mind. A human mind that is able to, the difference between a human and an animal is that a human is able to get views, to understand things. No matter how hard, they say that chimpanzee is, the closest primate to a human. No matter how hard you try, you cannot make a chimpanzee understand the nature of nature, because it's only a human or a human mind that has the capacity to understand. That has the capacity, that has the intelligence to understand. Just imagine wasting that mind. Because, just for the sake of it. Wasting that time just for the sake of it. Countless lives you have used to take a life that that you're able to understand them. Analogy that one of our fellow monks had given me is that, it's like this. Imagine you want to get a diamond, and you spend your entire, say, 80 years of your life. 80 years of your life you spend looking for a diamond. So you're digging and mining, looking for a diamond, and at the end of the 80 years, you get like a small, very small diamond. But you die, you pass away. The next life, you are born on top of a pile of diamonds. You no longer need to dig. You're born on top of a pile of diamonds, a mountain of diamonds. Imagine wasting all that and saying, you know what, let me use this diamond and let's throw this into the lake. Just imagine, when you are doing something that's not helping you go forward on your path to nibbana. Just imagine a past, one of your past lives, where you strive so hard to do as much merit as you possibly can to take a life of a human. What would that life say? What would you say? How dare you? How dare you waste all my hard work just because you wanted to do this? No wonder the vipaka of someone who takes alcohol or takes an intoxicant. So they are no longer aware of their surroundings. The vipaka for that is for them to no longer be able to comprehend anything. No wonder. You know how you feel when your child is wasting money. You work very hard for some sort of money, and your child is just spending it willy-nilly. Oh, there's a new thing that I really need. It costs 30,000 rupees. Hey, let's buy that. Uses it one day, another, and is no longer uses it. You know how the feeling that you feel? That when your child doesn't understand the importance of your hard work, and therefore what do? You become really angry and then you punish the child and say, why did you spend that much money? You have to understand, I work, 40 hours a week and I only earn this much. How can you spend this much money? In your previous lives, you've worked not 40 hours, your entire life for a life that you're able to be here to understand the Dhamma, to understand the nature of nature. That's exactly why you're alive. And instead, if we waste it by, taking intoxicants, won't you curse at yourself? Won't you curse yourself for wasting, all that hard work? You see, once you understand this, once you understand what the purpose of the mind, once you understand the nature of nature, what is the purpose of taking intoxicants? There is none. That's why the 5 precepts are to be protected until you no longer need to protect it, because they are protected. You have to protect it until it's protected. Protect until you no longer need to protect it, because it's protected. Do you see how every teaching of the Buddha, so the Buddha they say that the Buddha has 84,000, different sutras. Each of those sutras, don't you see, have the journey to Nibbana in each and every one of them. Even the 5 precepts have what? Nibbana in it. So traditions. What are traditions? Traditions are things that happen, that we do with great meaning, that over time loses its meaning. So, whenever you observe your precepts, right, whether it's 5, 8, 10, understand this meaning behind it. Understand there's a reason behind it. Try to take out this meaning. Try to take out this. Because once you take it out and you see it for what it truly is, you are able to, take another step forward. You're able to take another step forward. Take another step forward on the path to your own liberation, to your own salvation. Because the Tathagata can only show the path. Your teachers can only show you the path. Unfortunately, they can't walk it for you. Your teachers can only show you the path. They can't walk it for you. You have to do the walking. You have to take every step. They can say, as you're going on this path, think about this, think about that, think about this, think about that. This is why, Guru Maharaj every single week, every single Saturday, when he does his sermons, right, either Saturday or Sunday, in Sinhala or English, each time he's talking about, a different aspect of the same thing. He's talking about a different aspect of the same thing. Why? Because the only thing he can do is show you. He can say, look, this is how it works. But he can't walk that path for you. Your teachers can't walk that path for you. This is your duty. To keep walking, to take the steps, to understand the Dhamma. Because remember, Nibbana, the idea of Nibbana, this concept of Nibbana, is not a place, it's not a thing. It's an achievement that only you can achieve. Something that I want you to think about is that, the things that happen to you, are because of your own vipaka. The things that happen to you are because of your own vipaka. So whether something good happens to you or something bad happens to you, remember it's your own vipaka. So whether your teacher helps you in a good way or a bad way. What I mean is, let's say one day, your teacher doesn't show up to your teacher's meeting. That's whose vipaka? Your vipaka. Is it a good vipaka or bad vipaka? Is it a good vipaka or bad vipaka? My teacher didn't come to my teacher's meeting. Oh, what's this? In this samsara, I've done so many bad things. No, it's a vipaka. If you think it's bad, what should you do? What should you do? Accumulate more merits. But nonetheless, this is a vipaka. Your teacher comes every single week. That's your vipaka. You get to talk to, today you're talking with, your fellow Sila Shravaka companion. That is also what? Your vipaka. All we can do is we can't control the vipaka that comes in. We can't control vipaka. There is no power in this world that can control vipaka except what? Except this great power of cause and effect. Nothing can control the power of vipaka except the power of cause and effect. For example, you can associate a person. Let's say your teacher thinks and says this to you, right? From today onwards, No longer associate this person. That's something you get out of vipaka. Don't associate this person, because this person isn't doing good to you. It's doing harm to you. Whether you listen to it or not is because of what? Your mental state at that moment, i.e. the causes that are there at that moment. So for example, if you're someone who thinks, I have to listen to my teacher. My teacher is the one who knows. And you accept that, then that's your vipaka. Because of that, there's causes. However, if you're someone who thinks, but that person, they're like my best friend. How am I supposed to not associate this person? So you think, what? Regardless of what my teacher says, I'm going to do that. That's also because of what? Vipaka, but also because of the causes in your own mind. You see, as humans, we are able to change our environment. That changes the vipaka. So those of you who, just remember, before you came to the monastery, you were subject to lots of vipaka. Now your environment has changed. You're now subject to a limited number of vipaka. See, vipaka we can't control. Whether you talk to someone or whether you don't talk to someone, we can't control the vipaka, but what we can control is our environment. For example, you've probably seen this, right? Imagine there's always this person that you'll have a person in your mind that whenever they come into a room, you automatically, the feeling of the conversation always changes. Let's take a good example. Let's say, you're with your fellow companions, right? And you're just chatting away. Let's say a monk walks by. What happens to your conversation? It stops. Why is that? Because that monk doesn't have the causes to listen to that conversation. Now, of course, they may have the vipaka, but their causes aren't there. Therefore, they're protected from that. But aren't there some other people who, when they come into a conversation, the conversation shifts to a completely different way. So instead of thinking about, say you're having a conversation of, I couldn't understand this part of the Dhamma and whatnot, and a person comes and says, you don't worry about it. Come, let's go and have a cup of plain tea, and let's have a chat over it. And they'll change the vipaka. All you can do is change the environment. Your environment is the only thing that you can change. Your vipaka, you can't. That's why even if you're surrounded by, all these amazing angels, angels means yourselves, people with amazing hearts, yet your vipaka can only be a certain amount. For example, as you are all in the seat of Shravaka, Shravika, or Anagarika, monks, how often will you get shouted at? How often will you get shouted at, screamed at? How dare you do this? How dare you do that? How often do you get that? Next to none. Because your environment changes what? Your vipaka. So whoever you get to talk to, whatever you think, whatever you do, whatever you see, hear, smell, taste, touch, whatever you think, understand this is what? This is your vipaka. So be focused. Be focused. Accumulate as many merits as you possibly can, so your environment is changed. So you can change your environment. Therefore, it's only conducive for what? Nibbana. Just If you were to associate or be in the environment of people who are very, who is very skeptical, who are very, they have really negative ideas. They think they have very negative thoughts. When you're in that environment, what do you start to think about? No matter how positive you are, what do you start thinking about? It's raining today. Why is it raining today? Wow, why can't it be sunny? But if you surround yourself with positive people, now what do you think about? This rain is really good because this is going to fill, our tanks, and there'll be water for everyone. Or this going to, this rain is useful. I can hear the rain. Yeah, but hearing comes from what? Is the rain making sound? Now you have a different sort of environment. According to your environment, your vipaka will be different. So so this is the thing. Live and learn. Live and learn. Live and learn. Live and learn. Every single moment, take it as an opportunity to practice one bit more. See the world in the lens of the Dhamma. Don't let any moment go to waste. You see a conversation. Now, we don't know whether this is there. But let's say something is said, something is done. Now we know that if there's something is said or done, then this might be there. This defilement process might be there. Then see it as that. When someone is talking to you, look at the nature of nature. Look at this as a process. See, some of you may get to talk to your relatives. And when you talk to your relatives, sometimes they will just talk about what? Your aunt has passed away, and this has happened, that has happened. About the worldly life. If you can't avoid the conversation, then use it as a way to contemplate. When you meet a person, when they talk, what is talking? See their mouth move. See how, it's a process. That the word "the" has to come from where? This massive process. Who is speaking? How is speaking happening? Don't let any moment go to waste. The more you practice, the further you go. So don't let these moments go. See everything in the lens of the Dhamma. And bit by bit, your understanding will become greater. And you will attain. You will become an arhat. Guaranteed. The more you understand, the more closer you will become to understanding the nature of nature. See, forget about becoming an arhat. Just try to understand the nature of nature. That's all you have to do. See the world as nature. And that's it. That's all you have to do. So, the namaskar. Don't let the namaskar go to waste. Even namaskar, nama askara, to get rid of one's ego. To get rid of one's ego. That's all. Don't let the namaskar go to waste. Don't let namo tassa go to waste. Don't let buddhang saranang gacchami go to waste. If you don't understand its meaning, it's fine. At least understand that this is a sound. Sound comes from where? Sound comes from where? My mouth, right? From the mind. Don't let that go to waste. In the Buddha Puja, this is the perfect time to understand what? Where does sound come from? Whenever you hear birds chirping, it's a good time to understand where sound comes from. The reality of sound. the reality of sight. Don't let any mind go to waste. So whether A is a person or a mosquito, whether A is anything, the process is the same. So whether the person is an animal, or whether A is an animal or B is an animal, whether A is a deity or B is a deity, this is all the same. The difference is how much ignorance they have. So contemplate. That's all we have to do. We have to contemplate. The more we contemplate, the more we get to understand. The more we get to progress. That's all we have to do. Just see the world as it is. See the world as it is. Okay. Do we have any messages? No? Don't forget, we have our Malmura Pinkams, right? Pinkams. Malmura ceremonies. No, those are... I think yesterday we had our noble heartians do their Malmura Pinkam. So it's been separated for several of our groups. So Anagarikas, Shravikas, our noble hearts, devotees. I mean, this is a very good opportunity. Because remember, on the day of the invitation, you made a promise. You made a promise. You made a promise that I will supply everything the Mahasangha will need. But for you to just practice your path. But also, you have to help us as well. So we will do our maximum on our end. You have to do the maximum of your end. So come to this Malmura Pinkamas, right? These Malmura ceremonies. Do the Buddha pujas. Accumulate merits. The 3 months of rain retreat. Do the maximum you possibly can to accumulate as much merits as you possibly can. Because these 3 months is where, it's like this. If I take a magnet, right, we know that if I take another magnet and put it, together, north and north will always repel each other. But if we found a way to stick these both together, this magnet becomes stronger. So what we are doing in these 3 months are we're sticking every magnet we possibly can together. We have 2 types of magnets. The magnet of merit and the magnet of Dhamma. We're sticking both these magnets, all these magnets together. Because what we have to remember is there's no a separate person here, right? We all understand that, right? There's no separate being here. We are all part of nature here. I think the image that comes to my head is like, out of nature, there are different strings, which we call minds. But in reality, these are all part of what? This massive ball of energy itself. So when minds start doing similar things, what is happening is it's growing in power. That's why, when you do your doctrines, that's why we do our doctrines together. Sometimes it's really, really hard because, you have a doctrine over there, you have a doctrine over here, and you're doing a doctrine. You can hear both, but we are all together because you are condensing energy to create this massive energy to go forth. You're making a massive magnet and it's helping one another. That's why in these 3 months are a time where all these magnets are stuck together. You get this chance to do as much merit as possible, as well as to put as much Dhamma into your life as possible. Create this magnet. and attract your salvation. Because we are all part of the same thing. A mind works. This is beside the point. This is almost sidetracking, but I really wanted to talk about this as well, very, very briefly. A mind is energy. Do we all agree? We call it mind energy. They all come from this energy of, in a pure state. So what makes you and I unique is what? If the mind comes from pure energy, what makes you and I different? What makes you and I unique? I take, let's say, I take some clay and I make a castle here and I make a person here. What is the difference between the two clay? What is the difference between the clay? But the clay? Same. This is why we are all part of the same energy. But that energy, because of ignorance, we separate into feeling this is us. This is why once you understand that you are not a separate being, compassion, you can no longer feel compassionate towards one or two people. You feel compassionate towards everyone. Because why? They're all part of the same energy. I promise you, I will talk about this energy another time. I mean, I really do love talking about this energy. For the fact that it is how the world works, as well as how the mind works, as well as the nature of nature. You can explain the entire universe with anicca dukkha anatta. And I do really want to talk about energy some other time. Right? Because it's definitely a topic that is really, really interesting. So contemplate and practice the path. And that's all we have to do. And let's take a few moments to transfer our merits and conclude today's session. Let's take a few moments to transfer all the merits we've acquired by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, by chanting Pirit, listening to Dharma, engaging in various meritorious deeds today. So first and foremost, let's remind ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to be in receipt of Buddha's teachings. Let's take a moment to transfer our merits to the Bhikshu Bhikshunis, Upasakas, who since time immemorial have protected, preserved the sublime teaching of the Buddha and passed it down to the generation of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, to understand, to comprehend Dhamma. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including all chief pillars of chapters, who have dedicated their lives to the noble path and committed themselves to the betterment of all sentient beings. Let's not forget, among them will be the monks and nuns residing in local temples and nunneries, who have always been by your side, to thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let's take a moment to transfer merits to Guru Nanse, as well as other monks resident at the monastery, as well as the Anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let's take a moment to transfer merits to all those who make great efforts to disseminate the teaching of the Buddha, be that by translating sermons, sharing them out with others, inviting others to join them. May the power of the merits, if any of them be born in the woeful plane, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May by the power of the merits, may they abstain from meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's take a moment to transfer the merits we require to our devotees, friends of the monastery, who for sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes every one of you who have contributed to the construction of the monastery, to those of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, alms, robes, medicines, as well as those who pass their no-hacks and their well wishes. May the power of these merits, may they abstain from non-meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's take a moment to transfer merits to our mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews, nieces, our elders, friends and acquaintances, employees, employees, and to all those who helped us, supported us, assist us in any shape or form. By the power of the merits, may they be healed of any physical or mental ailments, may they overcome any obstacles in their spiritual progress, may they abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble effort path, and attain supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take more chance of merits to the Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons, primarily Sakadeva, as well as numerous gods and deities who were committed to protect and fulfill the Sambuddha Sasana. Let's also take more chance of merits to our garden deities, who keep a watchful eye of us and keep us out of harm's way. May the power of the merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom, may they abstain from the meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble fourth path, and attain supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's take a moment to transfer merits to our ancestors who have predeceased us, to all that have been friends and family to us in this infinitely long journey in samsara. Let's take a moment to transfer their merits to them. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of the armed forces, as well as the police force, who have sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those lost life in the world be the friend of foe. Rejoice in the mercy required today. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to all those lost life in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslide, pandemics, reminding ourselves among them will be those who have been friends and family to us in this long journey in samsara. May the power of the merits, if any of them be born in the world of planes, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissed plane. May by the power of the merits, may they abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble footpath, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, it's all resolved. May the power and the blessing of all the merits acquired the other day. We've been witness the event of many hundreds of thousands of Arhat Mahin in this blessed land. And finally, may the power of all the merits acquired the other day, you and I and everyone who made this program a success, become an Arhat or Arhat Mahin in this blessed land, in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings and the Vajrapachan be with you all. The members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnen midetva, dvesha ginnen midetva, moha ginnen midetva, nibbana parama sukhayin Sukita taravetva, nibbana parama sukhayin, sukita taravetva. Mamada siyalu loka, siyalu satvayo, nibbana parama sukhayin, Sukita taravetva, nibbana parama sukhayin, sukita taravetva, nibbana parama sukhayin, sukita taravetva. Raga gini niveva, dvesha gini niveva, moha gini niveva, nivan sapa labeva, nivan sapa labeva. Nivan sapa labeva. Tunwange Susyananta Mahaguna Medin, Siloka Sil Satyoma, Nibbana Pharmasokin, Sukataraveta.